Welcome to Step by Step Making a Baby Dirndl Part 5, where we'll finish the hem, add snaps to close the front, and begin the apron. The finished length for the skirt will be 9.5 inches. The skirt is currently 11 inches, so a quick and easy way to do the hem would be to fold under the raw edge by 1/4 inch and iron it. Then fold it under another 1.5 inches and iron that. Because this fabric is just a big rectangle, there are no curves to work around at all, so it'll be easy breezy. Because my fabric is a really busy print, I'm just going to go ahead and use a regular stitch to sew the whole hem, and it'll get done really quickly. If you were to use a solid color fabric, you might want to use the blind hem stitch so it'd look better. And I'm done hemming just like that. Now that the whole front of the dress is done, we're going to refer back to the pattern. In 1/2 inch straight up is where the 3 snaps will go. I'm going to be using pins to mark my buttons, but another clever way you can do it would be to use a dressmaker's marking pencil, and I have a white one, and it shows up really nice on red. And one of the really neat things about this is it doesn't add any bulk to your fabric, so when you mark your pencil mark where the buttons are, there's no bulky pins. However, I'm going to use pins today because I'm making this pattern specifically for Joanne, who is really new at sewing, and she might not have a dressmaker's marking pencil to use, but this would be handy. I designed this pattern for a beginning sewer, so I'm going to use snaps and buttons instead of buttonholes. Buttonholes are fairly hard to do when you're new at this. I marked the spots on the bodice where the 3 snaps will be. 1, 2, 3, and I also made those same marks on the other side because the snap will have a corresponding spot that will go right on top of it. 1, 2, 3. When I look at the dress front, this part here is where the snap is going to come onto. I'm going to sew this on with my sewing machine, but you can do it by hand also. I use my buttonhole stitch to sew the snaps on, and the stitch which creates the end tack for the holes just goes back and forth, and the fabric doesn't advance, so that one works really well. I'm going to put the first part of the snap right where the crosshairs of the 2 pins go together. I'm going to lower my needle down into one of the holes, going really carefully, and move my fabric up until it's just right there. Just going really slowly, making sure, because I don't want to break a needle. I'm using the hand wheel again just to go back and forth. And then once the needle gets down into the hole, I'm going to lift up the foot. I'm going to turn the whole dress, and I'll do a little bit of the same stitch going the other direction. I guess that gives me 2 points of attachment for each of the holes. And see, if I had not done it by hand, I probably would have broken my needle right there. Don't like to break my needles. There we go. I'm going to move it to the next hole. And I'll lower my needle again to one of the holes. Okay, the snaps are sewn on. I sewed this one using that same stitch, just keeping it right inside of the 4 holes in the snap. This one, I brought the needle in and out and in and out. The same thing with this one. I'm not sure which works better, but the bottom line is they're 1/2 inch from the edge, and they're equally spaced. Now I'm going to do the top ones. Now keep in mind that this one, however you do it, it's going to show on the top when you sew it through. So it might be better to sew this by hand, and I'm going to finish it off with a cute little button that's a heart-shaped button on the outside. These are my heart-shaped buttons that will cover up whatever stitching I did, and in fact I might even put a little ribbon or something along it just for fun. I'm sewing the top snap on by hand. It's a little bit thicker, and I just decided I would just do it that way. And this is the side that's going to be out front, which I will cover with a button. For someone new at sewing, it is definitely easiest to sew all of the snaps on by hand, so I'd recommend that, but I wanted to show how you could do it with the machine also. tried to sew my button onto the front, but because it had a shank, it didn't lay down really flat. So I decided to make a leaf. I started with a rectangle shape. I cut a slit in 1/2, folded in half, and then I stitched the shape of a leaf on it. Then I trimmed the edges. After all the edges were trimmed, I turned the right side of the leaf out through the slit. Then I will gather the leaf in the middle and hand sew the slit closed and gather the middle of the leaf and hand sew it. Adding little details like a leaf or a ribbon, extra decorative buttons really adds something special to the dress. Oftentimes when you're sewing, you'll change your plans. I originally was just going to put the silver buttons on there, and then I added the leaves as kind of an afterthought. I wasn't sure if I'd use a ribbon, but I think that's one thing fun about making your dress yourself. You can customize it how you wish. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up. Join me for part 6 where we'll make an apron to match the dress.